Hi everyone, I'm Daniel, and today I'm going to talk about a card that I really thought was going to be good, and I've just not made work. Don't worry, it's not Broken Bottle. Let's just get to what the card actually is. It's a card from the Drowned City, ready for anything. The Guardian event, level 0, costs you 1 resource, a spirit, and bold, which means you play it only as your first action. Draw 1 card, 2 cards instead if you drew an enemy this round. Then heal 1 horror. This action does not provoke attacks opportunity. Wow, Guardian has card draw, right? And I've talked recently about how I think Guardian needs a lot more card draw, and I just don't know if this is it. I've tried this out in Marion, and it's good, but Marion also has card draw all over the place. Every event gets an extra card. But for other investigators, I really want this to be drawing 2, not just 1. I've tried this in Hank because he can take spirits, and I tried this in Daniela, and it just didn't happen. I was waiting around to draw an enemy, and yikes, this rotting in your hand is bad. It just stinks. And I think that people probably have very different experiences with this card based on whether or not they are using it for its full ability or not. And I really want to draw the 2 cards. Drawing 1 card is not enough. Now, this has a lot of similarities with a different card that came out a long time ago, that's Second Wind. And it's kind of the opposite in terms of the wording. So you heal damage, but 2 damage instead if you drew a treachery, and then you always draw 1 card. So this is really a damage healing card, and the card draw is just a little bit of a bonus. And you might think of Ready for Anything in the same way, like maybe it's just a heal 1 horror card, and the draw a card and maybe 2 cards is a bonus. But I don't really play Second Wind either unless I'm playing this in Mark Harrigan, who really wants to heal the damage. I think it's like pretty okay in maybe Nathaniel Cho if you're taking a lot of damage also. It's a spirit, so you can pick it up with boxing gloves. Uh, but I don't think this card is particularly great either. It's just that Ready for Anything is dangling the draw 2 cards and heal the 1 horror, which I think is like super good for most Guardians anyway. And when you don't do that, you don't get the full value. It's not great. Now, when do you get the full value? Let's talk about this because it is actually kind of important in the card. You only get to do it if you drew an enemy this round, meaning from the encounter deck. That's what this means. It has to be something that you drew. It could be during the Mythos phase. I guess it could be during the Investigator phase if something weird's going on, like Drawn to the Flame. But pretty much this is only going to be if you draw it during the Mythos phase. So it's got to be something that's in the encounter deck. You draw it, and it has to be you. Now, that's true for Second Wind as well, but it's a treachery. And most people say, well, isn't that just 50-50? I mean, I think if you play the game, you know that there's not 50% of enemies and 50% of treacheries in the deck. It's actually a lot fewer enemies. It's quite a bit lower. And how much lower is it? So how often, when you draw a card, are you actually drawing an enemy? Most people probably say like 1 in 3, 33%. In which case, you're waiting around 1 every 3 rounds to play this card to get full value. That's not terrible. For Second Wind, it's much better. You're more likely to draw treachery, right? 2/3. But those numbers aren't correct. Let me just show you from the Drowned City the percentage of enemies in the encounter deck at the beginning of the scenario. Granted, this is going Western route, and I just did the first bunch of scenarios. I didn't do the finale because it's a little different. Let's take a look here. So scenario in the first column, number of enemies in the deck at the beginning of the scenario. Of course, that can change. Encounter deck size, that's just number of cards at the beginning of the scenario. And then the percentage of enemies. Woo, it's actually quite low. We're talking between 1 in 5 and 1 in 4 encounter card draws most of the time. And then you see at the bottom there, Obsidian Canyons is actually 30%, which is not 1 in 3. That's would be 33%. So it's not that many. And this is why people, I think, get a little bit flummoxed playing Guardians that just want to kill everything. And they say, where are the enemies? The game does not give you that many enemies. Well, I will also put the caveat here that beyond just enemies spawning in other ways, right, which won't count for Ready for Anything, There's also things like Surge that makes these numbers a little bit different, right? So treacheries tend to have Surge, enemies rarely do. So you can bump these numbers up a bit, right? And say that actually it's more like 1 in 4, maybe closer to 3 in 10, but it's still pretty low. And I don't know about you, but I don't really want to have a card in my deck that is just only getting full value 1 out of every 4 Mythos card draws, which is 1 out of every 4 rounds. I don't like it. Now, of course, and you're probably already thinking about this, if you're going to play these bold cards, you might as well throw in the whole gambit. And there's other cards that help you actually draw enemies out of the deck. This is another way to do this in Guardian. Let me handle this. This lets you basically pull an enemy off of someone else. You're considered to have drawn that encounter card instead. Cool. That the language there really tells me that I am drawing the enemy. And then on the hunt, which lets you, instead of getting your own Mythos card, whatever it might have been on top, you look at the top 9. There's an upgraded one that looks at the entire deck, and then you draw that enemy yourself. So these are good combo pieces. But you're eating into deck space. If you are trying to draw more cards with Ready for Anything, presumably you're trying to draw into other things, not just stuff to make that card draw you an extra card. So while I like On the Hunt a lot, I don't know if it's justification for the way Ready for Anything has played, at least for me. Again, like I said, you might have played this card and said, well, I just happened to have drawn the enemies. I didn't notice a problem. But I have low rolled this where I went the entire scenario as Daniela and never drawing an enemy. Granted, you're doing other things. You're getting enemies off of other investigators. So it's not like you're doing nothing. It's just that the card doesn't work if you don't draw the enemy yourself. Which is why I want to compare these to a couple of other cards that feel kind of an interesting balancing. So, Ready for Anything is the card draw bold card, and Glory is the fast just draw 2. But it has to be after you defeat an enemy. This, I think, is interesting because you don't get the horror heal off of it. You just get the draw 2. They both cost 1 resource. But you don't need to draw the enemy. You can just defeat anything. It could be a boss. It could be a mini boss that spawns. It could be something someone else drew. And you just get the 2 cards. That horror healing costs you kind of a lot. It costs you an action. Glory doesn't. And you have to play it first. And you have to, of course, draw the card too. Compare this to Scene of the Crime and Evidence, which is pretty similar idea. Getting a clue or 2 clues if you drew an enemy. Nope, it's not if you drew an enemy. It's if there's an enemy at your location. Ooh, wait a minute. That's really different. Now I don't have to worry about drawing the enemy. I just have to worry about it lining up at the same location that I'm at. Someone else drew it. There's a boss there, whatever, right? That gets you the extra clue. And even playing Scene of the Crime for 1 clue isn't so terrible. It's progressing the game in ways that just drawing cards isn't doing by itself. And then you look at Evidence, which is, again, the do it after you defeat the enemy thing, discovering just 1 clue. So what is the requirement to getting the extra clue for Scene of the Crime? It's that you have, well, an extra resource, you spend the action, and you just have to do it first, and there needs to be an enemy. That's not that big of an ask. If you've played Scene of the Crime before, you probably know this card's quite good. And it's not that hard to make it work. It really isn't. Yes, you can play On the Hunt, you can do other things, but usually this just happens more than once every 4 rounds. For Ready for Anything, in my experience, nope. It just asks too much. Of course, you can just play it for the card draw. As I said, in Marion, you're getting that second card anyway, but she should have a lot of events that, like, why is this the one that you need? You really want the horror heal, I suppose. Which is, I guess, the other aspect of it. If healing 1 horror is so important, then sure, Ready for Anything might be worth it. And for Marion, whose weakness cares about horror and she needs extra events just to discard for her weakness anyway, I can kind of see it. But for other investigators, which I thought, like Daniela or Hank, would really love this, it just didn't play out the way that I thought. There's also, if you're looking at these cards, the other interesting aspect, and this is kind of away from the Ready for Anything discussion itself, is the how many actions do you need to deal with the enemy? For Scene of the Crime, right, the extra clue is really cool. It assumes that you can get rid of the enemy in your final 2 actions. And evidence says, 1 clue is enough, and I need all 3 actions to defeat the enemy. You need to move there, for example. And I think Glory and Ready for Anything are the same kind of question. Eating up an action versus it being fast, it's okay for these to be eating up actions for the extra benefit. But I think Glory is just a very good card itself. And it doesn't even draw 3, right? Drawing 3 is really even much better, but draw 2, quite good. I suppose the other part to say about Ready for Anything is that you're drawing the cards first. So if you need some way to deal with the enemy and you just don't have it in hand, like you need to draw some more events to kill the enemy in Marion or a weapon that you haven't played yet, then yeah, like front loading the card draw is better than back loading it. That said, um, I think generally in Arkham, the first couple of rounds, you should be finding your stuff anyway. And it's really more in a Nathaniel Cho type of deck where you need to keep adding more fuel for more events and whatnot to get. And Glory is perfectly fine there. Like, it doesn't matter what you draw, you're usually going to draw something good. That's a reasonable, I think, take, though, for Ready for Anything. If you can draw the 2 cards, right, and it helps you get your Vicious Blow or some other event to play, that's quite good. Rather than doing it at the end, which you might not have been able to deal with the enemy otherwise. So that's probably like the point of the card. I mean, the theme, Ready for Anything, gets you the cards to do it. But I don't want to draw 1, I want to draw 2. All right. That's it. I think this very short, cool discussion, I think. Comparing these cards, but man, I really thought Ready for Anything was going to be good. And I think it's fine. It's just disappointed me quite a bit when I played it, and it became a cut, even if I left it in the deck way too long because I was like, I really need to see if this works, and it just didn't. Well, let me know about your experiences with the card. Probably they're better than mine, but yeah, that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.